My dad, by that point, 11, 12 years later, had become an alcoholic. He passed away from a heart attack. And after his death, I broke my silence. I was 19, I think. And I said to myself, right, I'm going to go all in on acting. This is the passion. This is, this is it. This is the thing. My ego was so high. I got so many daddy issues. I didn't want to have a boss. And it just wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted to live. And it was only 2 years ago where I found my path.
You could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello, everyone. Today we're meeting Perry Power. He's an author, an actor, and also a public speaker and mental health advocate. Hello, Perry. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Anna. No worries. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So let's start our conversation by diving into your personal journey of becoming the one that you are today. What led you to discover your true passion in life? How did it start for you?
The passion in my life is interesting. It started before I even knew what it was. And the passion is acting and it's making films and it's moving people through storytelling. And one of my first ever memories was as a child, and I was sitting in front of the TV, and I remember watching it and feeling like I wanted to be on it, but I had no idea what acting was. I didn't know what a TV show was. It was more of like a, a universe, energetic,
Mhm.
spiritual sort of message that would flow through me. And ever since then, that's the path that I took. And I did, I didn't go to traditional acting school, but I went to performing arts within a college, a community college. And then from there, I just went out on my own and did my own thing.
Yes. So acting became one of your just journeys through which you transform yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Correct. Robert De Niro says that acting for him, which I love, is being able to be in the shoes of someone else without having to face the consequences,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true.
and which
Mhm.
which I think is great. And I think there definitely somebody asked me this once, and I think there's definitely some truth in it, which is, Perry, did you create characters so that you could hide? So that
Mm.
you can get lost from the life that you were living. And at the time, I didn't see it like that. But I think now, as a 30-year-old looking back, I think there's definitely some truth in it.
Yeah. So I think it's all our choices. If we want to use it as a distraction tool, which we have different types of distractions nowadays, social media, different substances, and like you said, acting could be used towards you escaping this life, or you choose to be present to be in that character, and let's say rehearse in a way the life of somebody that perhaps is living that type of life, but you kind of put yourself from that perspective and start understanding something that you wouldn't be able to understand, right? So sometimes it helps you to really like see different perspective from different types of people. And with you using it as such a transformative tool, you can get the benefit for yourself out of that.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Acting and being different characters and being in different stories that are different from my own has definitely served me in many great, magical, purposeful ways. And, you know, I went traveling around Australia when I came back. I was 19, I think. And I said to myself, right, I'm going to go all in on acting. This is the passion. This is it.
Yeah.
This is the thing. And I got an agent and I went down the traditional path of acting where you get the agent, you do the auditions, and you're a starving artist, right? You try and work in a coffee shop
Mm,
or whatever it is.
right.
And my ego was so high. I got so many daddy issues. I didn't want to have a boss and got to ask for time off, and it just wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted to live. And I knew that there was a different path, but I didn't know what the path was. And I had to let go of the control of knowing what the path was or wasn't, and just trust that if I just let go and let the universe guide me, that I will eventually, whether it's 1 year, 10 years, 30 years in the distance, I will get to
Mhm.
where I'm meant to be.
Right.
And I was 19 then, and I'm
Mhm.
30 going on 31 now. And it was only 2 years ago
Mhm.
where I found my path. Attacked it, failed here, launched this business, didn't work. What's this offer? Didn't work. Doesn't feel right for 9 years. And
Mhm.
that's when I found then my publishing company, which is Powerful Books. And we work with trauma survivors now all over the world, and we help them to write and publish their own story, a memoir. And but that's the power of the universe. That's why I'm such a big believer in letting go and just, riding the wave.
Yes, and also you mentioned how you help people publish in their own stories. And I just want to touch upon like how in the society now it's becoming more I would say allowed for us to speak up about our experiences. For some people it's been traumatic type of experience in their life, and that affected their mental health over the years, right? And they still stuck in that negative perpetual cycle of thinking that affecting their life in the present moment. And with you really opening up about your story and helping other people to feel safe to speak up about unspoken perhaps in their mind, they know they're not alone in that. They
Mhm.
see support and the community of people who not judging them really. So I want you to touch upon the work that you do in that area and just you know like how can people get involved in that so they can really like see for themselves the transformative power of being able to speak up.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you said there, that we are moving into a time now where it is more, for the most part, there's definitely going to be pockets of people, different societies, different cultures where it's still not allowed or frowned upon to speak about certain things. But
Mhm.
as a whole, compared to 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, compared to 10 years ago,
Yeah.
it's definitely shifted. The collective narrative around certain topics has definitely shifted. And for people listening, I was sexually abused as a child by my step granddad, and it stopped when I was 11. My dad told me to stay quiet about it, and I did.
Mhm.
And that silence lasted for 11, 12 years. My dad, by that point, 11, 12 years later, had become an alcoholic, and
Mhm.
he passed away from a heart attack in June the 1st, 2017. He's 48 years old. And
Mhm.
after his death, I broke my silence. I say that I broke my silence in three stages. Stage one, I told my ex-girlfriend at the time, so the person closest to me, I told her about it.
Mhm.
Then I was at a business retreat for a fitness company that I had, and I told the group of personal trainers and fitness coaches there. That was the
Yeah.
second time. So I told one person, then I told a small group of people, and then driving
Right.
home, I was like, I need to tell the world.
Mhm.
I feel myself on this little momentum now to speaking out,
Mhm.
and I really want to do this. And I got my phone out and I did a video, went onto Facebook, and then, that's where the story starts really, because
Yes.
it snowballed, and that's when survivors started to reach out to me, and I realized, I was like, huh, I shared my story for me, but now
Mhm.
looking at all of these messages, my story can be for other people. And
Right.
that's the beginning of 2018. That's 7 years ago.
Mhm.
And uh, ever since then, it's just been, how can I help someone break their silence? One person. How can I help people break their silence? How can I help people find their voice? How can I raise awareness on intrafamilial abuse, sexual abuse within families? Like, that shit ain't talked about. It's just not talked about, right? Because nobody wants to put their
Right.
hand up and say, yes, I was raped by my dad. Yes, I was abused by my uncle. Nobody wants to say that,
No.
you know? It's a shame. So then it's like, well, how can we defeat the shame? Through what we're doing now. From people like you who are opening up their platforms to people like me,
Mhm.
and people like me also creating platforms for survivors to find their voice. And it's just been this sort of, like, people say, well, how did you get to the point of the publishing company? And really it's kind of, it's higher than that, which is If you know what your purpose is, you know what the message is, you know what your story is, and you know the difference that you want to make in this world from a bird's eye view, you just
Mm-hmm.
attack it every single day, and eventually the universe will say, "Well done, you've been doing this for ages now. Here is a sign, go and do this." And then you do it,
Yeah.
and then it opens up 30 different doors that you then go through that leads to the next thing and to the next thing. And you know, the the funny thing is that one how powerful books actually form. So I wrote and published my own book, and then I had a survivor reach out to me and ask me, can I help her write her book? And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't immediately say yes because I didn't, I wasn't connected to that idea because I really struggled to do things that aren't connected to the end goal, to the big vision. And at the
Yeah.
time, helping somebody write their book wasn't connected to a big vision. So I didn't really do it. Then I had a vision where I was sitting at a desk in like an old English style office, and it felt like a home office. And I was going through these pieces of paper, and there were screenplays, screenplays and
Mm.
pitch decks, and I was going through them to see which ones are really good that to move into sort of pre-production. But I felt like I had this energy in the same way me as a kid watching that TV. I had the same sort of
Uh,
energy that I had the part to play in creating those pitch decks and in
mm-hmm.
creating those screenplays. And that's where it clicked for me. I was like, huh, okay, maybe I could create a production company. Perry, what would you do? Well, I would only create true story films. Like if we sit in
Mm-hmm.
at home, we put the TV on, we put a film on, and we go to the cinema and movie theaters, and it says based on a true story,
Yes.
right? It's the best, right?
It's the
It's the,
best.
it is. And I was like, I only want to do true story films. That's what I believe the world needs more of. And
Mm.
then I sort of sat with that. And then it just clicked. It's like, well, if you help trauma survivors like that person I reached out to you write a true story
Mm.
book, eventually you'll have the means to start turning
Yeah.
these books into the films. And
Yes.
that's when it started 2 years ago. And now, literally, last night, so within the last 24 hours, I've launched a fundraising campaign to get my first film funded.
Oh,
So,
congratulations.
yeah, yeah, thank you. So it's crazy how
Yes.
it works.
Wow. I think you said something important. We have to show like the universe that we are acting upon that next step towards the direction of our vision, of our goals. So this is our language with what's not seen, right? But it's really like helping you and supporting you in your desires. But how it knows by you doing something that will lead you towards that, right? So if you're really committed, if you are persistent with what you're doing and nothing really like stops you and you taking those steps, you eventually meet certain people, certain experiences come your life, that opportunity that you would never thought of. But just because you started that snowball, right, eventually you will see the result for yourself. And you have to be in a long run for it. Don't
Yeah,
expect something overnight, but knowing that it
exactly.
will take some time. And it's just your internal motivation, the why behind it, right? It's
Mm.
always about the why. And that's what will keep you moving through difficult times.
Exactly. It's always what you said there is always about the why. If you don't have the why, you'll burn out so quickly. Like because the why, yeah, the reason why we have the why isn't for the good times, is to get us through the bad
Yeah,
times, right?
definitely.
And to hang
Hmm.
on because we
Yes.
know that eventually we're gonna tick that box of the why. And I say to the guys in Powerful Books that when you've written your book, like you guys have joined this program to find your voice through the process of
Mm.
writing your story. But once you've got the book in your hands, which will change your entire life, and then you publish it, that's when your story starts because that's when you're like, I can actually help people. It's one thing
Right.
wanting to do it your whole life, and then you share your story, the very thing that your family have told you to keep quiet, society has told you
Mhm.
to keep quiet, the inner demons have told you to keep quiet. You share it to shatter that, and you're gonna be scared, obviously. You're gonna want validation for sure. And
Yes.
then someone says to you, "Thank you for sharing that, 'cause you just saved my life." right? You've just
Mm.
helped me. And as soon as you get that, then it's like, how else can I help people? And I honestly believe that if more people who've been through trauma, who've been through dark times, can use those past dark times to shine a light on other people,
Yes.
the world will be a better place.
Definitely. And also, we meant to share our stories with each other. We meant to mentor other people if we've been through something. So it will show the way and you as a evidence that you've been through it. And there's another side of that. And somebody's
Mhm.
going through it right now as we speak. And I believe if there's something worth sharing and speaking about, there's always a listener on the other side that's waiting for you to tell them this. Otherwise, you wouldn't be having that desire to share.
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. It, no matter, I have yet to meet someone who has been through some type of abuse, and not,
Mm.
we've got a cancer survivor in our program. She's writing a book about her life story, and you, the person doesn't necessarily have to have gone through abuse, just some type,
Yeah,
whatever they relate to as trauma. But I've yet to meet someone that has been through trauma, through traumatic times, and there's not a part of them that wants to help someone else. Why? Because we know what it's like to be there,
yes.
you know? And if we can help that one person, then it all becomes worth it in a way.
Yeah, because that one person, at one point, it was you. What would you tell yourself back then? What kind of help you would like to have at that moment? You should just relate to that you in the past, and now you know exactly what the other person wants to hear because now they're going through that, and you have that deep connection, and they know that you've been through it, you understand and they trust you. There is a trust that's built between you and, people that listening and they kind of like see hope. They see the end of the tunnel. Now they're not as hopeless as they've been before. After hearing your story, it's like a ripple effect. It
Mhm.
just keeps better for not just you, but other people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I tell everyone that the book that you're writing is for the past version of you
Mm.
because as soon as you try to write your book or you try to share your story for multiple different people, it sounds great and I understand why people want to do that, but it becomes a very tricky road because you can't cater for everyone. The only person that you can cater for, write for, speak to is the very person who is in the shoes that you was once in. You know how they feel, you know what
Mhm.
they're thinking, you know what their fears are, and that's the very person you should be speaking to.
And that's why they feel it personal
Yeah.
because they have that deep connection because that's traumatic bond, like people who've been through it, they know it. And that really like enforces this power that you are given to another person, you empowering another person to go through the same challenge. And that's what they need. That's what you needed at the moment. That's what they need. And it just becomes natural. And people are, like you say, sometimes they save their own lives, but just listening to another person's story and relating to that story. So it's very powerful. And I believe also once we start sharing, like you said, it could be starting with a one person first, then it could go to a small group of people and so on. But it's also for us to heal first, also for us to allow ourselves feel to feel this moment perhaps of shame or abuse, but really let it go from our bodies, not continue like holding on to it because in the end it's making harm to us, right? So we need
Mm.
to find a way to release that, to let it go. But if we are not talking about it, and it will still be with us, no matter how old you are. But once you are ready and you're courageous enough to look at it and start talking about it and allowing yourself to feel, I believe it's just the healing process that becoming, not just for yourself and eventually for other people as well.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I think that writing is one of the best ways to do it. And in my book that 2021 is when I published Breaking the Silence. And the book is split into three parts. The first part is my story. The second part is a story of 14 different survivors. There's a page at the end of part two for story number 15, which is for the reader to
Mm,
take a pen and write their story in so they can become the 15th survivor. And then part
mm,
three is all about how someone can break their silence. And what I say is, people hear my story and they hear that I broke my silence in three stages, and stage one was telling my ex-girlfriend. But what I tell people is, I wouldn't do what I done in the same way, because if my I was lucky that my girlfriend at the time welcomed my story with open arms,
yeah,
but her reaction was out of my control.
right.
So, you know, when someone's living in silence for so long and the very first time they speak out is to someone else, it becomes a very, very vulnerable and dangerous space because one, that person can straight up reject their story. That's worst case
Mm-hmm.
scenario. But
Mm-hmm.
then also that person, they might have the best heart, the best interests, and their story might take them by surprise, and then they have a long silence because they're trying to think about how should they respond. But then the survivor can read into that silence and see it as something very, very negative, and
Yeah.
feel that silence with everything that the demons have been telling them about all those years.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden the survivor is now going to associate their story, their truth, with rejection, and they're not going to share their
Mm-hmm.
story again. So what I tell people is, break the silence to yourself first in as many different ways as you possibly can. So instead of telling your partner step number one, tell them step number 13, and the first 12 steps. Write a poem about your trauma. Write a song. Write a piece of music. Choreograph a dance
Mm-hmm.
piece. Do all these different things where you're just slowly, slowly taking a step towards owning that truth of yours.
Yeah.
And eventually, when you do tell your partner, you'll be telling them from a very, very different place in here in your heart compared to the very first time.
Yeah, I think that's a gradual process of opening up, and it would be more applicable for people to really feel safer in their body while sharing. And also, I think there is something that I call usually attachment for the identity. A lot of people have this attachment and they think because of something that happened to them, now they are this person, but it's
Mm,
not who they are. But they think, okay, so what that happened to me, so now I'm this and for the rest of my life, whatever that label you will put on it, right? And it keep them really like closed and not being able to share. And once they create that space, like you said, break silence to yourself, maybe journaling, maybe just open mic, maybe, I don't know, talking to yourself on the phone and just recording it, whatever. Like, start doing something maybe creative, and it helps you to create that space first, between that story of
yeah.
what has been with you and you, which is more than just being an identity, right? And you just play different roles in life. It doesn't mean this is who you are, right? You
Yeah.
have certain masks to wear in different situations. It's not who you are. So you have to like understand that you you can rewrite your story from any point of time, right? You are the producer, the director of your story, and the actor. So all three in one in your own life. So it's up to you to decide to really take it to a different direction. But how can you create that space? Because like if you are making that first uh, speech about what happened and you never spoke about it before, maybe you're still attached to that identity, and it's kind of like very painful to you, very
Mm,
painful. And like you said, if somebody rejects you, now again, like you close even more than you were in the past, and you're not going to be able to share as easily. So creating that space, I feel like it helps, and yeah, and gives you then another opportunity to share in more larger scale.
Yeah, exactly. It's the gradual process, which I think is very, very key for survivors.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've seen that you are making this movie, It Ends With Me, right? This film.
Mhm.
So what is I would say, the main intention behind it, and the purpose in terms of benefiting other people?
Yeah, the main purpose behind the film is to help start the conversation around intrafamilial abuse, and the purpose behind it in regards to the impact that I wanted to create is to help break generational silence.
Mm.
Because the fact that after I spoke out, I found out that my dad was abused too when he was a child,
Yeah.
and that's why he lived in silence because of that shame, and that's why he became an alcoholic. And then not just him, I found out other members in my family went through abuse too, and it was just a silence was the thing that created the damage. And it's a common denominator across all of these families. And it's
Mm.
like, it might not even be sexual abuse. It could be anything. It could be any form of thing, but it is surrounded in silence. And that's the whole point of this film. And it's not going to be, I made a specific decision not to have it as a documentary because I think that if someone who is a survivor of sexual abuse, they might not want to watch a documentary about it. They
Mm.
might not feel ready for it, but they might watch a feature film, a drama, right? Because there's a certain
Yeah,
level of space, a certain level of detachment between themselves and the story that they're watching. And
right.
also, I'm not really a big documentary guy. I don't watch a ton of documentaries, but I watch a lot of films, and I
Hmm.
think that it's one of the best ways to convey a very strong message when it's wrapped up in a film that we go out and watch.
And it could be based on a true story, like you said, right?
Yes, yeah,
So, yeah, it could be,
exactly.
yeah. So it's kind of like, it happened, but in a way you have room for, creativity as well. And
Mm,
I feel like it's very impactful for us to know that breaking silence and making it just normal conversation is important in our society, because this vulnerability, it builds trust, it builds safe space to be ourselves. A lot of people pretending to be somebody else, and they live in different lives. And again, the why behind it, sometimes it's their way to cope, to escape, to not be judged, to not be humiliated, so on, right? But why are they making those kind of, coping mechanisms? Because the society at not at this point where it's allowed, everything to be as everybody to be who they are, really, without like thinking about not being rejected in the end. So if we first be open with other people, if we can create space for conversations, for people to feel safe with us, to talk about anything that's bothering them, and really like feeling that we need to treat our mental and physical health and emotional health on a daily basis, in terms of like checking in with how we're feeling and what should we do today to help ourselves to heal in some kind of way. Could be meditation, journaling, going to nature, but really start prioritizing our health as if we are here for a reason, if we are important, right? And really building that self-worth and knowing that I am gonna support myself in any way possible. I'm gonna give myself the best care. And also, it will reflect in the relationship with other people as well. If I'm
mm,
creating safe space for me to thrive, and it's just natural how I interact with others with the same type of compassion. So we need, I think, like start with us first to create that change, and it will be the beginning of changing the society. If everybody will take that responsibility to know that, what can I do about my own health first? And then it's just you have cup full you can share with others easily.
100%. Survivors are known to put other people before them.
Yeah.
And I think that as soon as we start to make that switch and put ourselves first, that's when the healing, that's when the growth, that's when the transformation, really starts to begin. And when people do that and they start to experience that, then, that's because it's a difficult thing, especially if you had your trust broken by someone close to you, if you've gone through abuse, like that level of distrust, that level of anger that you're still going to have, attachment that you're still going to have, and especially if you've been silenced and the very thought of you speaking up, that well, if I speak up, I'm going to destroy my family. There's going to be a
Yeah.
rip in my family. That right there is you putting everyone else before you without understanding that your family wanting your silence is not good enough.
Mm.
Love within a family should come without conditions. Them
Right.
saying you need to stay silent, you know, there are conditions that's been laid out on the table, and I think that is a very, very, very hard step to make. But I say to people that if you don't come from a supportive family, then you need to make sure that a supportive family comes from you instead. And that
Mm.
happens when you can put yourself first. And if your family walk away, well, I tell you what, you're better off without them,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have to feel within ourselves. Sometimes, like, there's intuition or this gut feeling. You feel like something is off. If somebody asking you to keep it silent, perhaps it's their own like agenda going on here, right? And if you don't
Always
feel
is.
yeah, if you don't feel it's comfortable for you, you always have your own choice to make. You
Yeah.
can either agree with them or disagree, and it doesn't matter like uh, if you decided to share it, it's not defining who you are. It's not like you're gonna in a way, go against them or do something harmful to them. Not, it's just for you. How do you feel within yourself? And they should accept your decision, and really respect your decision in any way, right? So if they don't, that means, again, it proves that they had their own agenda behind this type of request that they made. So
Mm.
it's like you have to be also kind of discerning when people ask you something or when you interact with other people, and not always put their needs first, not
Hmm.
trying to people please. I know we're trying to really like fit in this society and be liked by others, to not feel this rejection, but it's just impossible to please everybody. And in the end, you're harming yourself. You're going against your own values, your own principles, and what you stand upon, really. Ask yourself first, how are you going to live your life? What are your values, right? And this is what should be important for you. That's your compass. And if anything is not aligned with your vision in life, it's okay to say no. You don't have to agree with everything. Doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person. It's just you choosing for yourself. This is your truth, and you have to be honest with yourself. You don't have to try to please other people. So, and again, it could be done in polite, respectful way, right? You can say no very easily in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. You can. And we're people pleasers,
Yeah.
a lot of us. And that's a hard thing to get out of too. But once you start to put yourself first, that's the first step. As soon as you put yourself first and everything else is just a compound effect, that's when you start to realize, oh, I people please. I need to work on that. You know, all right, I'm thinking about this person's feelings, or I'm not asking for the promotion, or I'm not doing this, I'm not chasing my dreams. I don't dress the way that I want to dress because of how people might, and you start to be aware of all these things. But when you're thinking about other people and you put other people first, it doesn't give you the space to reflect and to be aware.
Yeah, and also I feel like the interaction with other people or those experiences sometimes they reflect you some kind of information about yourself. Perhaps you didn't treat yourself, well enough, and now you have this opportunity to take that message and start treating yourself differently and
Mm,
showing yourself more compassion, self-care, and self-love because it's not gonna go from external world. You would never find enough love that will satisfy you if you're not the one giving it to yourself. If you're the one rejecting yourself, there will never be enough from somebody else, and that desire to feel that bliss and love is just because we kind of like forgot how we're supposed to treat ourselves. I don't know what happened along the way, but at some point, we just abandoned ourselves. And now it's a time for us to forgive first what happened with us, right? And let go of that past. And sometimes also it helps to forgive the perpetrator because, like you said, everybody is coming from the kind of like distraction type of environment, something happened to them, perhaps that now it's just they pass it on to others. But that type of trauma, it has to stop with you. And I think forgiveness is a big key for us to move on. And it's hard
mm,
to do, but it's mostly for our own benefit. We shouldn't be thinking that, that's something I do for that person. It doesn't really say that it didn't happen to you, right? Or with you. But what it does is just allowing you to acknowledge it, but still find a way to release that from your system.
yeah, 100%. I agree. I agree. And I think that's why I'm such a strong advocate for people writing a book. And I say to people as well that when I say write a book, you don't have to publish it if you don't want to. If anything, the version of you right now isn't ready to publish a book, because if it was, you would have done it already. So allow the version of you who has written their story to then decide whether you want to publish it or not. But you need to not overlook the fact that the version of yourself that you will become through the process of writing your story is going to be completely different to the version of you now. And when you do write your story, that's when you start to find out things about yourself. That's when you start to put yourself first. And that's when you start to see the world through a slightly different lens. And also, like you mentioned earlier, that's when you can start to find forgiveness
Yeah.
because you start to lead with curiosity and you start to question why things happen. You start to look at your story reflectively rather than being in the story itself.
Right.
And that's the key with writing.
Definitely. I'm so glad we had this conversation today. And thank you for sharing your thoughts and wisdom. So, for those who would like to connect with you online, how can they find you?
Two places. You can follow me on social media. I am Perry Power. That's pretty much my handle everywhere. Or you can go on to the company website, which is bepowerfulmedia.com. And on there, you can find our event that we're running in July in London. You can find out more about Powerful Books. And we've also got on there merchandise and Powerful News, which is like a news outlet where lots of our survivors and authors publish their own blogs on there, self-improvement, personal development, stories, wisdom. So it's a great place for people to hang out.
Great. And thank you for sharing your story. And as we close today, what would be the final thought for our listeners?
Final thought would be that if you are currently controlled by fears for certain areas of your life, if you want to be specific around maybe sharing your story and speaking out, just know that there won't be like a I'll wait for a little bit until the fears start to lessen. Like in 2 years' time, 5 years, 10 years, and 30 years' time, the fears will still be there. And they probably will be worse. So the key is not to wait for the fears to go away. It's to make your purpose greater than your fears. As soon as you understand the purpose as to why you actually want to share your story and you start to lean into that purpose, or we said earlier about the why, that why statement, as soon as we lean into the purpose and we make the purpose greater than the fears, that's when we will do it. We'll hear the fears, we'll see them, we'll feel them, but we will do it anyway because the purpose is too great.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. I hope you
Thank you.
enjoy your day.
You too.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned!